Get out. You don't belong here. Clara Monroe, head flight attendant of Skyline Airways Flight 815, stood in the aisle, finger stabbing the air at seat 3C. Her navy blazer stretched tight across her shoulders, the red scarf at her neck trembling with every sharp breath. All eyes shifted. In the plush leather seat sat Jordan Ellis, calm, steady, unbothered. A simple black hoodie, faded jeans, white sneakers, not the image most people expected in first class, and that was the problem. Behind Clara, Captain Robert Hayes loomed. Arms folded, silver hair cut to regulation. His stare was heavy with judgment, not yet words. Two security officers hovered in the doorway, waiting for the nod. Passengers leaned in, phones tilted upward. A red record light glowed in the corner of the cabin. Lena Brooks lifted her phone higher, whispering to her seatmate. Derek Johnson. Get this. Every second. Jordan didn't move. His eyes lifted once to Clara's face, then settled forward again. Calm. Composed. Clara's voice sharpened. Sir, I said, stand up. This seat isn't yours. Jordan's reply was barely above a whisper, yet it carried across the row. Check your system again. The words landed like a stone in water, quiet, but rippling. Clara didn't flinch. She snatched the torn boarding stub from his tray table and waved it like evidence. Fake, printed at home. You think we don't see this every week? Gasps rustled through the rows. Someone muttered, That's bold. Another whispered. He showed ID at the gate. Captain Hayes finally spoke, voice graveled with authority. You're holding up this flight. Stand now, or you'll be removed. Still, Jordan didn't move. In the back, Sophia Martinez, the youngest crew member, froze by the galley wall. Her stomach turned. She had scanned his pass herself, green, valid, real. She wanted to speak, but Clara's glare held her silent. The tension thickened, hot and suffocating. Ethan Ross, the younger attendant, slid in beside Clara, smirking. Maybe he got lost on his way to coach. A sharp laugh cut from the Langfords, Charles and Victoria. Skyline Platinum elites already waiting to slide into the seat Jordan occupied. Champagne in hand, smug smiles. Jordan exhaled slowly. No protest, no raised voice, just silence that pressed heavier than Clara's shouts. Phones kept filming. A cabin of strangers became witnesses. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below, and if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Jordan Ellis. The moment hung suspended. A finger pointed, a captain looming, security waiting, a man seated in defiance. The fight had begun. Just 30 minutes earlier, the story was simple. Skyline Airways Flight 815 sat gleaming at Gate D-22 of JFK International, scheduled non-stop to San Francisco. The aircraft was spotless, its first-class cabin designed to impress plush leather seats, champagne already chilled, overhead bins polished to a mirror shine. The kind of space meant to whisper wealth, not question it. Jordan Ellis walked in quietly, unnoticed at first. No entourage, no tailored suit. Just a plain black hoodie, worn jeans, and sneakers. He looked like any other traveler trying to get home. That was deliberate. Most people didn't know his name, and that was fine with him. But in boardrooms, Ellis Capital was more than a name, it was a force. And through it, Jordan controlled 22% of Skyline Airways itself. Enough to sway policies, enough to hire and fire, enough to rebuild the culture of an entire airline. But today, he didn't walk in as a shareholder. He walked in as a passenger, a test. Recent whispers had reached his desk. Complaints buried under PR reports, emails skimmed over by middle managers, comments on forums ignored. Skyline doesn't treat all passengers the same. Not based on class of ticket, but on appearance, on looks, on what someone seemed to be worth. Jordan wanted to see for himself. Seat 1C was his, paid in full. Booked under his real name, no favors, no board-level alerts, no platinum tags around his neck, just a man with a ticket in his pocket. When he stepped into first class, the air cooled around him. Clara Monroe had looked him up and down with an expression that wasn't subtle. Ethan Ross had smirked as though the seat number in his hand was a joke, and Captain Hayes, alerted far too soon, carried himself like a judge, not a pilot. In the back of the cabin, Charles and Victoria Langford were already waiting, platinum members, old money from Connecticut. They weren't even hiding it. The expectation that 1C belonged to them was written all over their polished smiles. The Langfords didn't glance at Jordan like a fellow passenger. They looked through him, as if the seat he claimed was simply on loan until the real owners arrived. Phones were already out. The cabin wasn't blind. Witnesses saw his boarding pass scanned green at the gate. Sophia Martinez had scanned it herself. But the moment Jordan sat down, the unspoken hierarchy of appearance began its work, and now the whispers were turning into accusations. This seat isn't yours. You don't belong here. Fake ticket. Printed at home. The curtain of luxury had slipped, revealing what Jordan suspected all along. Skyline Airways had a sickness. One flight at a time, it infected dignity, and he was here to cure it. Clara Monroe blocked the aisle with her body, posture stiff as steel. Her voice carried the sharp edge of authority sharpened by years of unchecked power. "Sir, for the last time, show me your boarding pass." Jordan Ellis didn't argue. He didn't roll his eyes or huff in protest. He simply reached into his hoodie pocket, pulled out the paper stub, and held it steady in her direction. His hand didn't shake. His eyes didn't flinch. The cabin leaned closer. A quiet tension pulled every row forward. Clara snatched the stub like it was evidence in a crime scene. She stared at it no more than 2 seconds before snapping, "This is fake. I've seen copies like this before, printed on a home computer." A murmur spread. Someone whispered, "It's scanned at the gate." Another replied, "Then why is she saying fake?" From the galley, Ethan Ross strutted forward, a crooked grin tugging his lips. "Let me guess, you downloaded a template online? Thought you could slide into first class on looks alone?" His chuckle was low, mocking, meant for the rows to hear. Jordan's voice came even, calm, precise. The system recognized it. That's all that matters. But Clara wasn't listening. She turned her head slightly, speaking to Captain Hayes as though Jordan wasn't even there. "He's trying to occupy 3C. It's been reassigned to the Langfords." Behind her, Charles and Victoria Langford exchanged a glance over their champagne flutes, neither hiding their smirk. To them, the verdict was already written. Ethan stepped closer, tilting his head at Jordan. "You know what gives it away? The hoodie. Nobody in this cabin dresses like that. You stick out. Wrong place, wrong image." Phones tilted higher. The red glow of record lights multiplied. Passengers weren't just watching anymore, they were archiving. Jordan leaned back slightly, his calm refusing to break. "A ticket is a ticket. Clothing doesn't rewrite it." The words landed heavy, truth wrapped in simplicity. But Clara only hardened. She slapped the stub against her palm. "Counterfeit. We don't allow imposters in premium cabins." Her tone was final, like a gavel slamming. Still, Jordan didn't rise. He didn't retreat. His silence wasn't weakness, it was defiance in disguise. From the back, Sophia Martinez pressed a hand to her chest. She had scanned his pass. She had watched the system turn green. The truth was burning in her throat, but Clara's eyes cut her down before she spoke. The aisle was no longer an aisle. It was a stage. Clara, Ethan, and the Langfords formed the cast of judgment. Jordan sat as the accused, and the audience, phones in hand, waited for the next act. Clara Monroe's fingers curled tight around the boarding stub. For a fleeting second, her eyes flicked toward the rows of passengers, at the glowing red lights of recording phones. But pride burned hotter than caution. With one sharp motion, she tore the stub in half. The sound was small, just paper splitting. But in the silence of first class, it cracked like thunder. Gasps filled the cabin. A woman in row 3 covered her mouth. Someone whispered, "Did she just?" Ethan Ross let out a laugh, low and smug. "Guess that settles it. No more fake pass to wave around." He leaned closer to Jordan Ellis, voice dripping with mock pity. "Back to coach, friend. Or maybe security'll walk you off altogether." Jordan didn't flinch. He watched the shredded halves fall into Clara's manicured hand like discarded receipts. His silence was deliberate, measured, a contrast so sharp it cut louder than their voices. At the far end of the cabin, Charles and Victoria Langford exchanged another satisfied glance. Victoria swirled her champagne, her lips curling into the kind of smile born from entitlement. Charles murmured, "Finally, let's get settled." They weren't hiding it anymore, the expectation that Jordan's removal was the price of their comfort. Clara turned, holding the torn stub like a trophy. "Security will handle this. Seat 3C is reassigned." She gestured toward the Langfords without hesitation. "Mr. and Mrs. Langford, right this way." A ripple of disbelief coursed through the passengers. Phones angled higher. One man muttered, "That's not right. We saw him board." Another added, "You can't just tear it up like that." "In the galley." Sophia Martinez's breath caught. Her hands trembled at her sides. She had scanned that pass. She had seen the system verify his name. Yet here was her superior, rewriting reality with a rip of paper. Fear and anger tangled in her chest, the truth pressing against her lips. But she stayed silent. For now, Jordan leaned back against the leather headrest, calm as stone in a storm. His eyes lifted once toward Clara, then drifted to Captain Hayes, still standing like a silent judge behind her. Hayes's expression gave nothing away, but his silence was an endorsement. Ethan smirked wider, emboldened by the silence of authority. "You hear that, buddy? Game over. These seats aren't for everyone." Phones caught every word, every smirk, every shred of torn paper. The cabin wasn't just witnessing a boarding dispute. It was watching a performance, one scripted by prejudice, executed by authority, and filmed by strangers who knew it was wrong. Jordan said nothing, but his stillness was louder than any protest, and in that silence, the storm gathered. The hum of the jet engines outside was steady, but inside the cabin, the tension vibrated louder. Lena Brooks raised her phone higher, her screen glowing in record mode. The red dot pulsed like a heartbeat as she whispered, "I'm getting everything." Beside her, Derek Johnson angled his camera too. "This isn't just wrong," he muttered, voice low but firm. "This is evidence." Clara Monroe's eyes snapped toward them. "Put those phones away. This is a private matter." Lena didn't lower her phone. Her voice cut back, calm but audible. "It stopped being private when you tore up his ticket in front of 30 people. Passengers shifted in their seats, emboldened. A man in row 3 shook his head. "We saw his pass. It was real," a woman muttered. "This doesn't feel right." The whispers spread, turning into murmurs, rippling through the polished cabin like cracks in glass. Ethan Ross smirked, but there was a tremor behind it now. "Y'all don't know the rules. We do." Lena shot back without hesitation. "No, we know when someone's being humiliated." Jordan Ellis still hadn't moved. His silence wasn't surrender. It was a stage for others to step onto. From the galley, Sophia Martinez gripped the edge of the service counter. Her mind raced. She had scanned his boarding pass. She had watched the green checkmark light up on the gate device. Every fact she knew contradicted Clara's accusation. Her lips parted, the truth ready to spill. But Clara's head turned sharply, catching her with a glare like a blade. "Stay out of this, Sophia. Trainees don't get a say." Sophia's throat tightened. She swallowed her words, but her hand slipped to her phone, screen glowing faintly as she opened the audio recorder. Her whisper was barely audible. "If I can't speak, I'll record." Clara straightened, turning her back on the murmurs. "Security," she barked. "Remove him now. This flight doesn't wait for frauds." The officers stepped closer, but they hesitated. The air had shifted. This wasn't just one man against the crew anymore. It was one man, silent but immovable, surrounded by witnesses. Derek leaned forward in his seat, voice carrying down the aisle. "If you lay a hand on him, the world will see it before this plane even takes off." Gasps, murmurs, and the constant hum of phones recording fused into a single pressure point. The cabin was no longer under Clara's control. Jordan finally lifted his eyes, steady and calm. His first words in minutes landed soft but undeniable. "Facts don't need volume, they just need witnesses." And now, he had them. The aisle parted as Captain Robert Hayes stepped forward from the cockpit, his presence heavier than the polished stripes on his shoulders. The murmurs dropped to silence. Authority had arrived. He stopped just behind Clara. Monroe, arms folded, voice carrying the weight of final judgment. "Sir, this is done. You've delayed this flight long enough. Stand up. Gather your things. You're leaving this cabin." Phones tilted higher, catching every word. Jordan Ellis didn't move. His gaze flicked once to the captain, calm, unreadable. "I've shown my pass. Twice." Clara cut in before Hayes could respond. "Fake pass. He forged it. And now he's wasting everyone's time." She turned, gesturing to the Langfords behind her. "Seat 3C belongs to our Platinum members." Charles Langford gave a smug nod, his wife Victoria sipping champagne with satisfaction. To them, the verdict was obvious. Hayes didn't hesitate. He looked only at Jordan. "I'm not going to debate this. You're leaving. Voluntarily, or with assistance." The security officers shifted, hands brushing the radios on their belts. The cabin's breath held. From the back, Derek Johnson muttered, "This is insane." Lena Brooks said louder, phone steady in her hand. "Captain, we all saw his ticket. It was real." Hayes's voice cracked sharper. "Ma'am, sit down and stop recording." Lena didn't budge. "Not when you're lying." Gasps rippled. The word lying hit like fuel on fire. Ethan Ross chuckled nervously, trying to break the tension. "Passengers don't make the rules. The crew does." But his smirk faded under the weight of dozens of eyes and lenses aimed directly at him. Jordan finally spoke again, his words slow, deliberate. "Authority without truth isn't authority. It's theater." The captain's jaw tightened. His voice dropped lower, sharper. "This is my aircraft. My word is law here." Jordan's gaze held steady. "Your word isn't law. It's choice. And today, you're choosing wrong." Silence fell again, thick and charged. Even the engines outside seemed distant. From the galley, Sophia Martinez found her voice, trembling but brave. "Captain, his boarding pass was valid. I scanned it myself." Hayes's head snapped toward her, his eyes narrowing. "Trainees don't speak during escalation." The rebuke cut harshly, but it was too late. Her words had been spoken, and every phone in the cabin had caught them. The balance cracked. Passengers began whispering louder. One said, "The trainee confirmed it." Another, "She just admitted the truth." Clara's face tightened, fury flashing. She hissed, "Stay silent, Sophia, or you'll never earn your wings." Jordan's calm voice rose again, not in volume, but in weight. "Truth doesn't need wings. It just needs air." The cabin, once obedient, was turning restless, and Captain Hayes, once untouchable, stood face to face with a silence heavier than his own authority. Clara Monroe's patience snapped like glass under pressure. She snatched Jordan's carry-on from under seat 3C and yanked it into the aisle. The latch popped. Papers shifted inside. "This will prove it," she barked. "People like you don't belong here." Gasps. Phones zoomed closer. A woman in row 3 muttered, "She can't touch his bag." Jordan's voice was calm, too calm. "Put it back." But Clara shoved the bag toward Ethan Ross. "Check it." Ethan grinned, half nervous, half thrilled. He reached for the zipper. Jordan leaned forward, his tone dropping cold and deliberate. "One more inch, and you won't just lose your job. You'll lose this airline's last defense in court." Ethan froze, his grin evaporating. The bag stayed closed. Clara's face burned red. She turned sharply to the security officers. "Remove him, now." One officer stepped forward, hand landing heavy on Jordan's shoulder. The cabin inhaled. Jordan didn't flinch. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Take your hand off me." The officer hesitated, grip loosening. Something in Jordan's tone carried weight that uniforms couldn't. Clara's fury escalated into desperation. "He's a fraud. He forged his ticket. He's dangerous." That word dangerous cracked the cabin open. Passengers recoiled, not from Jordan, but from her. Lena Brooks lifted her phone higher. "Dangerous? He's been sitting here silently while you tear up his ticket and steal his bag," Derek Johnson added, voice sharp. "We all saw it. He hasn't done a thing." Clara ignored them. Her words grew louder, reckless. "For all we know, he could be a threat to national security." Gasps erupted. Even Captain Hayes blinked, startled by her leap. From the galley, Sophia Martinez stepped forward, trembling but firm. "That's not true. His boarding pass was valid. I saw it. I scanned it green." Clara spun on her, venom in her eyes. One more word, Sophia, and you'll never wear those wings. Phones caught it all. Passengers murmured, horrified. Jordan finally rose, not fast, not aggressive, but deliberate. His height filled the aisle, his calm cutting through the chaos. "You've called me dangerous for sitting in the seat I paid for," he said, voice low but commanding. "Think carefully who the real danger is." Silence crashed down, heavy and absolute. Security hovered. Clara seethed. Hayes clenched his jaw. But the witnesses, the cabin had already chosen their side, and the crew, once certain of their power, suddenly looked small. Jordan Ellis didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He pulled his phone from his hoodie pocket, the screen lighting his face in a calm glow. He pressed a single button. A voice answered instantly through his AirPods. "Mr. Ellis, I'm here." Passengers leaned in. Clara frowned, unsettled. Ethan Ross muttered, "Who's he calling?" Jordan's words were measured. "Rachel, log everything. Live record. Forward the stream to the board, and prepare emergency protocol." Gasps threaded through the rows. The board, eyes widened. Phones caught every syllable. Clara tried to bark over. "Him. Put that away. You can't record on a plane." Jordan didn't look at her. "Already done." On the other end, Rachel's tone was crisp, efficient. "Confirmed. Protocol engaged. Legal team notified. Board members alerted. Timestamp, 6:42 p.m. Captain Hayes stepped closer, bristling. "Sir, who exactly do you think you're talking to?" Jordan's gaze locked on him, calm and unyielding. "People who outrank you." The cabin buzzed. Murmurs rose, hushed but urgent. "Who is he? Did he say board? Emergency protocol?" Clara's veneer cracked. Her voice sharpened, laced with panic. "This is a stunt. He's bluffing." But Ethan's smirk faltered. He whispered under his breath, "What if he's not?" Meanwhile, Lena Brooks whispered to Derek, "Keep filming. This isn't just a seat dispute anymore. This is something bigger." Rachel's voice cut through the tension again, clear and undeniable. "Mr. Ellis, Skyline Board has eyes on this incident now. Live." Clara froze. Hayes blinked. Even the security officers exchanged uncertain glances. Jordan set his phone gently on the tray table, screen glowing, call still active. His words were deliberate, steady. "You tore up a valid ticket. You tried to erase a name from your system. You called me dangerous for wearing a hoodie. And now, you'll explain it to the people who sign your checks." Gasps scattered across the rows. Someone muttered, "Oh my God, he's not bluffing." Sophia Martinez's eyes widened, hope flickering across her face. She knew then he wasn't just any passenger. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Clara's throat worked as she tried to swallow her fear. Hayes's jaw clenched harder, but the authority in his stance wavered. And Jordan, still calm, still steady, leaned back into seat 3C like it had always belonged to him. Because it did. The silence was fragile, like glass ready to shatter. Every eye in the cabin fixed on Jordan Ellis. Phones hovered, recording. Even the hum of the engine seemed to fade. Clara Monroe broke first. "This doesn't prove anything. He's just putting on a show." Jordan lifted a hand, calm, precise, enough to silence her mid-sentence. "Truth doesn't need performance, it needs proof. And proof is already traveling across secure servers to Skyline's board." Murmurs rippled like shockwaves. Passengers leaned forward. Someone whispered, "The board?" Another, "Is he connected?" Captain Hayes tried to recover, authority straining in his voice. "Passengers don't have direct lines to the board, not unless—" He stopped himself, realization flickering across his face. Jordan's eyes never left him. "Not unless— what?" Hayes stiffened, but didn't answer. Lena Brooks turned her camera toward Derek, whispering into the mic, "He's someone big. You can feel it. Look at them, she's shaking." And Lena was right. Clara's hand trembled as she clutched the torn halves of the boarding stub. Her confidence bled out with every second of silence. Ethan Ross leaned closer to her, his voice low but not quiet enough. "Clara, what if we just made the worst mistake of our careers?" Phones caught it. Gasps followed. Jordan exhaled slowly, then spoke again. each word deliberate, each syllable a weight dropped onto the crew's shoulders. You called me dangerous. You tried to erase me. But the real danger is arrogance without accountability, and accountability is already here. His phone chimed softly. Rachel's voice echoed clear for all to hear. Update. Board members confirmed. Video feeds received. Incident under immediate review. Passengers sat stunned. The Langfords exchanged nervous glances now, their champagne untouched. The smugness had drained from their faces. Jordan leaned forward, his gaze sweeping across Clara, Ethan, and finally Hayes. His voice dropped low, almost intimate, but captured by every phone in the cabin. You wanted to decide who belongs. You're about to learn who decides whether you still belong here. The words hit like a verdict before the verdict. Sophia Martinez's breath caught, her chest rising fast. She whispered under her breath, almost a prayer. He's the one. He has to be. The passengers murmured louder, speculation rippling like fire through dry grass. Is he the CEO? He owns part of the airline. That's why he's so calm. The balance had shifted. The crew no longer controlled the cabin. Jordan Ellis did. And the reveal wasn't complete yet. Clara Monroe's voice cracked as she tried to recover control. Everyone calm down. This man is lying. He forged that pass. And, lying? Lena Brooks snapped from row 3, phone still recording. You tore up his ticket in front of all of us. I got the whole thing on video. Gasps surged again. Passengers turned toward Clara, eyes narrowing. Derek Johnson raised his phone higher, voice carrying down the aisle. Same here. Multiple angles. Internet's about to see exactly how Skyline treats its passengers. Clara's face drained of color. Her eyes darted toward Captain Hayes, pleading for backup. But Hayes looked less certain now, his jaw tight, his authority wobbling under the weight of 20 cameras. Ethan Ross stepped in, trying to patch the hole. Passengers don't understand protocol. There are procedures you can't see. We're trained to discriminate? A passenger shot back. Murmurs of agreement followed, louder this time. Clara's mask slipped, desperation seeping through. You don't know what you're talking about. He doesn't belong in first class. Look at him. Her words cut short, because they sounded worse out loud than in her head. Phones caught every syllable. The prejudice was naked now, undeniable. Victoria Langford lowered her champagne glass slowly, unease flickering across her face. Charles, maybe, we shouldn't. But Charles pressed his lips thin, muttering, too late. Sophia Martinez finally stepped into the aisle, voice trembling but resolute. Captain Hayes. I scanned his ticket. It was real, valid, green. If anyone's lying, it isn't him. Clara spun on her. Enough. You're a trainee. Stay in your place. But passengers had heard enough. Someone clapped. Another shouted, let her speak. The murmur became momentum. Jordan Ellis remained calm in his seat, eyes steady, hands resting on the armrests like a man waiting for gravity to do its work. He didn't need to shout. The cabin was speaking for him. Rachel's voice broke through again on speaker. Update. Social media uploads from this cabin are already trending. Number Skyline scandal is live across platforms. The weight of it landed like a stone in the crew's stomachs. Clara's lips parted, then closed. Ethan's hands fidgeted at his sides. Even Captain Hayes took a half-step back, eyes narrowing as if reassessing his entire stance. Lena Brooks smiled into her camera. The whole world's watching now, Derek added, and they'll see exactly who tried to erase a paying customer. The tide had turned. The crew was no longer in control. And for the first time, Clara Monroe's eyes betrayed what she refused to say out loud fear. Jordan Ellis finally rose from seat 3C. Not fast, not aggressive, measured. Every movement deliberate, like a man who knew gravity had already shifted in his favor. The cabin fell silent again. Even the security officers stepped back, instinct telling them to wait. Jordan's voice was steady, his words sharp as a blade wrapped in velvet. You've called me a fraud. You've called me dangerous. You tore up a valid boarding pass and tried to erase my name from your system. He looked at Clara Monroe first. Her chin trembled as she clutched the shredded ticket halves in her fist. Your mistake wasn't just insulting a passenger. Your mistake was forgetting that respect is owed to everyone, not just the ones who look like they fit your picture of first class. Gasps scattered through the cabin. Phones kept filming. Clara's eyes darted toward Hayes, but Hayes avoided her gaze. Jordan turned now to Ethan Ross. You mocked me, laughed at me, tried to turn humiliation into entertainment. Every word was recorded, every second preserved. Ethan's smirk had long vanished. His mouth opened, then closed, nothing left to hide behind. Finally, Jordan faced Captain Hayes, the man in uniform, the one who had spoken as if his word was law. You told me your word was final, that on this aircraft you were the highest authority. But you were wrong. Jordan tapped his phone once. Rachel's voice filled the cabin, clear and irrefutable. Board members are online. They've reviewed the evidence. Effective immediately, you are authorized to relieve crew members of duty. The silence broke with gasps. Clara staggered back a step. Ethan muttered, "Oh no." Hayes's face drained of color. Jordan's next words fell like a gavel. As of this moment, Clara Monroe, Ethan Ross, Captain Robert Hayes, you are relieved of duty. Permanently. Phones caught the collapse in real time. Clara's mouth fell open. Ethan looked ready to sink into the floor. Hayes whispered, This can't, but it could, and it had. Passengers erupted, some in claps, some in shouts of agreement. That's justice, Lena cried. Derek added, finally, someone holding them accountable. Jordan didn't smile. His calm was heavier than celebration. This was never about noise. It was about dignity. And today, Skyline forgot its own values. That ends now. The cabin, once divided, now pulsed with a single current, witnessing power, real power, exercised not with shouting, but with certainty. The verdict had been delivered. The cabin of Skyline Airways Flight 815 was unrecognizable from just 30 minutes earlier. Where there had been tension, there was now release. Where fear had held, justice filled the air. Clara Monroe slumped into the jump seat, eyes glassy, ticket halves still clenched in her trembling fist. Ethan Ross leaned against the galley wall, pale, stunned, muttering to himself. Captain Hayes stood rigid, stripped of the certainty he once wore like armor. But Jordan Ellis remained composed, a quiet storm now fully revealed. He looked around the cabin, meeting the eyes of the very people who had watched it unfold. You didn't just witness a boarding dispute, he said, his voice carrying steady through the hush. You witnessed what happens when arrogance replaces service, when appearance replaces truth. Phones recorded every word, not for spectacle, but for history. Jordan turned to Sophia Martinez, the trainee who had dared to speak when silence was safer. You stood up, when it mattered. That courage will not be forgotten. Her breath caught, eyes wide. Sir, I just did what was right. That's exactly what this airline needs more of, Jordan replied. Passengers nodded, clapped softly. A few even stood. Lena Brooks wiped at her eyes, whispering to Derek, This is bigger than a flight. This is change. Rachel's voice chimed again from the phone, crisp and final. Replacement crew ready at gate D22. Flight will resume under new command. Passengers to be compensated. Incident logged. Jordan gave a small nod. Proceed. He turned once more to the passengers. His words were quiet, but every syllable carried weight. No one should have to look like money to be treated like a person. Not in the air. Not anywhere. Silence lingered, reverent. Then the cabin erupted, not in chaos, but in applause. Not thunderous, not forced. A rhythm of relief, of recognition, of dignity restored. Jordan Ellis sat back in seat 3C, the seat he had claimed, the seat he had paid for, the seat that had almost been stolen from him. This time, no one challenged him. No one questioned him. No one dared. As the applause softened, he looked out the window. The city lights of New York shimmered beyond the tarmac. His reflection in the glass was calm, steady, unshaken. The flight would continue, but so would the story. And long after Skyline Airways Flight 815 touched down in San Francisco, the lesson would echo louder than the engines. Dignity isn't granted. It's demanded. And today, it won.